We begin, as all good stories and pieces of art do, with a blank page. This is the story of Howell Illustration, my art business, where I draw illustrated maps, custom illustrated maps for publishers and people like you. I love drawing maps. It's one of my favourite things to do. They're always changing, they're always different. They have so much history behind them. In fact, I just ordered a book, so in future videos I can teach you or tell you a little bit more about their history. But for now, this is the history of me and my business. So this particular format, I went with a format called a ribbon map. The ribbon maps traditionally depict linear subjects like rivers and roads, and they go across the page, so they're either long and thin, very long and thin, or they go across the page like a ribbon, so they just follow on from one another, going to the top and then the bottom and then back to the top and bottom, back to the top, bottom, and so on, all along the page. And so I thought that was perfect for a timeline, which is essentially what I'm doing here. So I'm doing the map of me, my map of Howell Illustration. I also do artwork based on nature. I sell prints and postcards, and all my work is sustainable, so everything I do is as eco-friendly as I can make it. So all of my prints are printed on hemp paper. My cards are printed on recycled paper, and so on and so forth. So I'm really proud of that. So this is the title block I'm drawing now. I think it's actually called a cartouche, if you want to get technical. But I think title block is a bit more immediately understandable. So I use title block when I talk to people about their work, about their maps and how they want their maps to be. I often do everything's fully customizable, so you can sort of say, I want this to be written in the title block if you commissioned a map from me, and that's what I do. So here is my title block telling you what the map's about, and it's a very slightly fancy title block, not the fanciest I've done, but I wanted this to be a bit quicker, a bit rougher, this map, because that represents, I guess, me a bit more. If you go on my website, you can see my finished maps, and I spend a lot longer on them. You can see I'm just writing in established 1987, which was my birth year. Here we are at the beginning of the journey. So I recorded this a couple of times, so I can't remember what I've said, so forgive me if I repeat myself. The first time I didn't record at all, so that was clever. So Howell isn't actually my name, it was my granddad's name. It was my mum's maiden name. My granddad was Arthur Howell. I didn't want at the time I was in book editing, and a lot of people knew me for book editing. So at the time I started my business. So I called it something that wasn't my name, but is the name of someone I loved. This is my granddad here. Everyone said I got my creativity from him. He was the only person to be really creative in my family, really. So I think he was the one who kind of understood a lot more of that side of me. My granddad was pretty awesome. So here I am attempting to draw him from a photo I had in front of me at the time. I am not, as Grayson Perry said, I am not one of life's natural portraitists. And that certainly rings true for me as well. But sometimes I will pop a portrait on if it's particularly significant to the map. And in this case it is. My granddad was really the one I spent the most time with when I was young. He used to take us on nature walks, and we'd always be outside with him and he'd always get us lost. Here I am just drawing a very rough border. If you go on my website you can see some much nicer borders, but I just wanted to get this map done quickly so that you could see it really. Here I am drawing a forest. This is part of my granddad. He loved nature, he loved being outside, and that's definitely something I took from him, although not till later in life. This is I hand letter all my maps, so I'm just trying to figure out how I want to write this. Here. So here we are, Arthur's Grove, here's my trees. And in a minute I'm going to attempt, trying to do some little shadows, which is, that's how they used to draw them on some very old maps. And they used to have little shadows, but then I decided I didn't like it, so I took them out. At this. So my granddad was Howell, but I changed my name a couple of years ago. I actually married and became Hawley. And I changed my middle name, which was Catherine, to Howell. And that was largely inspired by a book called Howell's Moving Castle by Diane Wynne-Jones. Didn't even realise it was Howell could be a first name as well as a surname. So I read that book. It's one of my favourite books ever. And so I am now Nicola Howell Hawley. Here I am. I'm drawing a pet shop here because when I was young, I used to design pet shops. And that's one of the very first really creative things I remember doing, is designing these pet shops. Because I wanted to own a pet shop when I was young. And so I used to spend hours designing the layout and the buildings, and just I remember doing that in the caravan with my granddad. One of the other things I remember doing is creating these little booklets for my parents. And the booklets used to have in them jobs I would do, and then the price of them. So it would say sort of weeding and have a little illustration of a shovel or something, and then it would be like 50p per hour, and then I would take the booklet to them and get them to choose a job for me to do. I'm just drawing Simba here. When I was in year 1, I drew Simba freehand from a book I had, and I was so proud of the drawing, and it looked really quite accurate, I think. And I took it in, I was so excited because I wanted to show my teacher, and I thought it could be entered into a competition that she told us about. And I showed her, and she sort of dismissed me, and she looked at it and she went, "You've copied it, you've traced it." And I was like, "No, I didn't trace it." And then she said, "Anyway, you can't put that into the competition because it's painting." And that was the end of that. But I always remember it because I was so proud of it. I think I still have it somewhere actually. I'll try and dig it out. Maybe I can show you guys on my website. Put it in a blog or something. So this is another little tributary. This is a 90s computer. Which we had. I remember it had a blue back. Not our first computers. They weren't pretty or fancy or anything to be desired at the beginning. I used to play Space Invaders on it. But this was another facet of what I used to do. I used to sit on The Sims and just design houses and not really play it, and just design all the houses. And I used to do the cheat code to get loads and loads of money so I could just design the fanciest houses. And I used to wish they had more things in my style so I could design better things on The Sims. Anyway, I blew up that particular computer I'm remembering with the blue back. I accidentally flicked the fuse switch on the back. I think it was a fuse switch. It was a switch that added more, what's the word? Oh, I've forgotten it. I've forgotten the word I'm trying to use. Anyway, the switch blew up the computer and it smoked, and my mum was really, really cross with me, as she would be. So that was that memory. So there are a few things. I don't really have a lot of memories of designing and art and things like that. My memory is very, very poor. So there's a few things I remember from my childhood that I could talk about here. This is my school now that I'm drawing. My secondary school. I talked a little bit about my primary school there in year 1. But I don't remember that informing my love of art very much. So I remember mainly it being my granddad who informed my love of art. Here I am drawing little cities and terraced houses. I lived in a terraced house for most of my life when I was young. So I just wanted to show that and my proximity to sort of London. I was in the suburbs of London. What is zone 5 now, I think? South London. And this is my school, Coloma, at Croydon. And the reason I've drawn it in here is because it's one of the main things that led me to art, really. Because I took different A-levels there. I don't remember particularly loving the teacher or anything like that, like not finding very much inspiration there. But I do remember loving art as a subject. So I took art along with English, psychology and history at A-level. And art became the main branch. Oh yes, and this is me going back. This was the main street of my life. I didn't want to call it Main Street because it's very American, and obviously I'm not American, so I just called it High Street. So that's the main street of art branch coming off. And I remember one day I was deciding what to do at university. I knew I wanted to go to university, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I just thought, you know what, I just love art. I just love doing art. It's the funnest subject. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do what I love. And if you're watching this and you're not sure what you're doing, that would be my best advice, is try to do something that you love. And it's not always easy. Because you don't have the resources maybe, or you don't have the time. I fully understand that. It's so hard. It's a really hard thing to do, follow what you love. And I'm speaking from a place of privilege that I could do these things, I suppose. But back then, didn't really have anything to lose. I just wanted to get away. So here we are at the University of Reading. This is actually the library I've drawn here. I didn't spend much time in the library, but I took fine art. That was my degree, and I got a 2-1. And I remember being so disappointed because I got a first in my 3rd year and then a 2-1 in my 2nd year. And that was the year I actually listened to the art teachers, so really I think I should have just carried on doing what I was doing. Not listening, doing my thing, and maybe I would have got my first again. Anyway, I was really disappointed. A little bit bitter, as you can probably tell. So here I am drawing a compass rose. I don't know if you remember, but right at the beginning I said that when you have a river map, often what cartographers did was use compass roses to show a change of direction. So here I'm about to depict a change in direction. And that's also what the loop in the road signifies as well. I couldn't decide for the longest time whether I wanted this to be a river or a road. I'm still not sure, so I just sort of left it. I think it became a road, really. So that I'm trying to move it to show my initial direction and then the change of direction. There we are. So here's the change of direction there. After university, I felt like I was on a lot of rocky ground. I was really disappointed. I felt a bit lost. I felt like all of that work I'd done in my final year, which was the work I spent the longest time and worked the hardest on, was for nothing. I didn't like art anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I completely changed direction. And I decided to become a book editor. So in central London. And it took me a couple of years to gain the experience to be a book editor. It's a very hard profession to get into. It's quite closed. There's not a lot of positions available. You have to really keep an eye on things. You have to get into the right places with the right people, the right parties. And it takes a while. And I was lucky I lived in London, really, because I had free accommodation with my mum. Anyway, that was the change of direction. I edited sci-fi, fantasy and horror books in London. And that may give you some clue as to where I first encountered illustrated maps. I should mention as well, while I was doing editing, I used to also do these paper cuts on the side, so fine line drawings and things like that. So I used to cut patterns out of paper, and I used book pages to cut the patterns out of paper and pictures out of the paper. When it came to the end of my time there, the company had changed a lot. It went from a very small company in Bloomsbury Square to a very large company near Blackfriars. And I was doing everything pretty much on my own in a very small imprint of Quercus books. And every time I asked for help, I was told no, or you can do it yourself, or whatever. And it's very hard doing everything yourself and not receiving help when you ask for it. And that was what led to my breakdown. So that's what those rockier mountains are doing in the deep dark forest above there. They're showing that part of my life. And I just needed to get out. I panicked and I just needed to leave as quick as I could. And so I retrained to be a teacher. And I retrained in Sydenham. And there's not much about that here. It served a purpose. It got me out. And I did enjoy it. I loved my class. My class were absolutely lovely. They were my favourite thing about it. But I don't agree with a lot of teaching and the way we teach children now. So, yeah, my opportunity came to leave when we moved to Surrey. Me and my husband, or then boyfriend, moved into Surrey. And I decided to become a full-time illustrator. And this was me just going back because I realised I did fine line drawings a lot when I was an editor. And one of my first maps I created was for a book called Unforgettable Walks by Julia Bradbury, which is what I'm doing here. One thing editing did do was give me a lot of opportunity to do some very cool things. Like I did some paper cuts for some really cool authors. Stephen King, China Mieville. And it was very cool. But this is going back now to my decision to do illustrating full time. This is my first studio, which was a shed in my garden. Little shed. And it was very dark and I couldn't see anything in there. And I did lots and lots of pen and ink drawings. Dip pen and ink is where I started. I love doing dip pen and ink work. I created my first products out of my dip pen and ink drawings. And I started going to markets where I met lots of people. And in the intervening years, since I think about 7 years ago now, we moved, 7 odd years ago, I've done travel, kids, food, lifestyle, line work, all these different illustrations. And a lot of them haven't really led anywhere. So you can see the cut-off roads there. The ones that have are my nature illustration. I'm always really inspired by nature. And I'm going to continue that. Pattern illustration I've just started doing and I absolutely love it, so that's going to continue. My fine art, I've gone back to fine art a little bit, but that's not going too well, and I think I have to cancel my website, my fine art website, unfortunately, but that's at nicolahowhawley.art if you wanted to see it. I also do lettering. I do a lot of lettering in my maps. So yeah, and I've decided recently to really focus on my maps and be a specialist map illustrator, because that's the thing I enjoy the most. So there we are. And that's just me writing into the future. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about doing more maps. And just this one other thing to say is that when I moved out of London, I remember just taking such a deep breath. That last day of teaching and then moving out. And I remember being on the train on the last day, coming out to Oxted, and going past Oxted and being so happy because it was so green and beautiful. And I hope that I can bring a lot of that into my future work. So yes, here I am, decided on maps. Here's the full map here, the history of me. Well, a very potted history of me, but a history of me nonetheless. And I just want to tell you, thank you for watching my first ever video. And in future, I hope for these videos to be art-based and art-related, but always I'm hoping really calm, easy to watch. And I am hoping that for a little bit, you might enjoy or get a bit of an ASMR effect of listening to my voice. So we'll see how we go. Thanks very much. Check out my website at howellillustration.co.uk if you want to see my maps and what I do. Or if you want to shop with me. I'm in the process of drawing more maps for my shop at the moment, so keep an eye on that. You can join my newsletter. Whatever you'd like. Thanks again. And I hope to see you soon, and thanks for watching. Bye.